Hi, my name is Charlie May, and this is my multimedia project, Expansion of Immigration in the United States, which covers whether the U.S. should or should not increase the amount of pathways to immigration. So, throughout this entire semester, I've done research looking at what immigration policy would best benefit the United States in terms of economics, social cohesion, and national security. And to understand what would be best, we have to look at its prior immigration policies, often motivated by racism. As we can see in its past of 1882 with the Chinese Exclusion Act, 1921 with the Emergency Quota Act, and 1924 with the Johnson-Reed Act, all of which look to preserve a specific racial or ethnic makeup of the country, which in turn would limit competition for jobs and increase, supposedly, national security measures. However, as you can see, in recent years there has been a failure deterrent, as Cordova and colleagues state. Individuals remain undeterred in their efforts to escape their country because upon returning to that country, they confront the same conditions that led them to attempt to flee in the first place. Due to the conditions of their country, they will continue to return to the U.S. and try to immigrate illegally if there are not enough pathways to come to the U.S. legally. Meaning, even if they are deterred first, they will try and attempt to come back again. So in order to strengthen the U.S.'s national security, social cohesion, and economic state, expanding its pathways to immigration would actually benefit all of these. First, by expanding pathways to immigration, this will lead to greater social cohesion and unity. As with the increased amount of legal pathways to immigration, this will lead to a decreased amount of illegal immigrants, which will reduce senses of alienation, as people within their communities will understand that these are not people that came here illegally, but legally with documentation through the expanded pathways. And according to David Lockwood, framework of civic stratification, this will lead to a more stable society as there is institutional unity of citizenship. Expanding pathways to immigration would also lead to an enhanced economic state for the United States. As we can see on the graph on the right, provided by George Mason University, if we were to increase immigration levels to very high, there would be nearly a $10 trillion increase in GDP compared to if we were to keep immigration levels the same. Also, former Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan has mentioned the immigrant labor force as a crucial safety valve for our economy, meaning they can fill in low-wage, high-demand jobs and act as a dynamic labor force that is also essential to our fiscal future. Nobel Prize winner Paul Krugman reinforces this, noting how that during the COVID-19 pandemic, all of the U.S. labor force growth was due to the foreign-born workers, while the native-born labor force was actually declining. This highlights how immigrants are the key to supporting Social Security and Medicare, as if immigration were to remain at recent levels, Social Security is projected to pay out $337 billion more than it receives by 2050. Yet if we double immigration, that deficit drops dramatically to only $139 billion. Higher immigration directly mitigates the financial drain from our aging native population, as these immigrants provide the taxpayer dollars needed to help fund these programs. And the idea that only high-skilled immigrants matter is a myth. While they absolutely boost global competitiveness and innovation, we know that the benefits are broader. In the meta-analysis by Luz and colleagues, which synthesized data from 41 studies, it found that all immigrant skill levels, low, medium, and high, have a positive and statistically significant impact on economic performance and boosted productivity. We need all levels of immigrants in order to bridge the skill gaps in our native labor force that they cannot fill in order to maintain our competitive edge. Immigration is not a burden, it's a necessary economic strategy. Increased legal immigration would directly lead to a more rich, stable U.S. economy. Simply by allowing more opportunities for immigrants to arrive to the United States would lead to enhanced national security. While this might seem counterintuitive, in his National Bureau of Economic Research working paper, Abramsky and colleagues find that today immigrants are 60% less likely to be incarcerated than all U.S.-born men and 30% less likely to be incarcerated relative to white U.S.-born men. This is due to the fact that immigrants are less likely to commit crimes as they do not want to be deported from the country and give up their opportunity that they receive to come to the United States. So they are more careful to stay away from crime. Also, Michael A. Clemens, a professor in the Department of Economics at George Mason University, has found that expanded activity on the lawful market substitutes for the parallel market, even net of scale effects. This means that with more expanded legal opportunities, this will lead to less illegal crossings, which will make sure that more immigrants are vetted and taken account of, leading to higher national security. One research gap that I found is a lack of research that includes all three factors into account, being economic, social cohesion, and national security. In order to have the best policy decision making, the United States must have research available that takes all three variables into account, as each isolated variable does not work on its own, and they are all factored in and affect each other. The United States must obtain research that takes all three into account in order to maximize each aspect's potential benefit, calling for the need of research that takes all three into account.